Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One minute. Ravi, sir, you can start.
Okay. Ravi sir, shall we start?
Yes, we can get started. Please go.
Okay. All right. General instructions to all the participants. Kindly mute your audio and your video the moment you join the Google Meet. Okay. A warm good morning. I thank you all for finding time and visiting today's national level webinar organized by St. Joseph's Evening College Autonomous, Bangalore, Department of Commerce. I, Varsha Madhavan, faculty from the Department of Commerce, invite each one of y'all to this national level webinar. Prayer does not fit us for the great work. Prayer is a great work. It's my pleasure, and I now request Ms. Dorothy Deepa, the faculty from the Department of Commerce, to lead us in prayer. Charles sir, am I audible to everybody?
Yes, you are. But,
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay, sir. All right.
no, someone was supposed to do the prayer.
Yes, sir. Just 1 minute. 1 minute.
All
She's
right.
getting connected.
Varsha ma'am, shall I go ahead?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning to all. So let us put ourselves.
Ravi Richard, the head Department of Commerce of St. Joseph's Evening College, Bangalore, to welcome all and also introduce our resource persons for the day.
Good morning, everybody. A very warm and cordial welcome to each one of you to the national webinar on the topic Business Resilience in the Face of Chaos. We are all journeying during these troubled times where chaos and uncertainty has become the order of the day. Most of us are from the academic background, as I understand from the registrations, as faculty and students, and these uncertain times has put academic pursuits into a worrisome situation. So every domain of society grapples with uncertainty, and business is no exception. When it comes to business, uncertainty and risk is something which is not an exception. And that's what makes business so exciting and challenging. But extreme or chronic uncertainty can be detrimental with toxic implications on the health and well-being of different stakeholders of businesses. The COVID pandemic has created a terrifying uncertainty to businesses, which has become a great concern for not only the stakeholders of business, but also every individual in society. Because the well-being of a society is dependent on how businesses are functioning. At these troubled times, it requires courage and fortitude for businesses to get going. And I think we need to go with this adage, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. For businesses at these troubled times, evolving new strategies and responses is the way to handle this crisis. To give us insight into this topic, business resilience in the face of chaos, we have a distinguished resource person, Mr. Rishikesh KB, faculty member, Department of Commerce, Christ University. Mr. Rishikesh has a MCom, MPhil, and an MBA degree to his credit. He has 10 years of teaching experience. He has also worked as a senior research associate at IIM Kozhikode. He has 30 publications and also book translation titled Globalization and Changed Society to his credit. He is also a member of various professional, academic, and cultural bodies and associations. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I request you now to take over the proceedings and make a presentation on the topic Business Resilience in the Face of Chaos. Over to you, sir.
Just to intervene before we start our today's presentation, we also would like to welcome the head Department of Commerce, Professor Ravi Richard, and over to Rishikesh sir to take over the proceedings.
All right. Should I also come in video? Should that be there or?
Sir, it would be nice if you're there on video.
All right. I'll do that. Thank you. So I hope my screen is visible now as much as I am. Is the screen visible?
No, sir, no.
No?
Yes, sir, it's visible,
It's visible, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I hope all of you are in a healthy place and all of you are safe, because we're all in a time that needs a lot of self-assessment, and that's exactly what we are doing currently when we are all going through a phase of a pandemic, which was quite unexpected. So I normally begin with this slide, most of my presentations, which I thought I'll continue. This is a very cliched, much used slide for most of the presentations when they begin. Well, this is how the sunflower would look like on a bright day, all right? But the question is, how does it look like on a rainy day? Now, the answer is, on a rainy day, all these sunflowers would turn towards each other and they'll draw energy from each other. Well, that is exactly what most of us are doing right now. We have turned to each other. We are trying to draw energy from each other, learn from each other. And I consider this webinar as one such platform wherein we could learn a lot from each other. At the outset, I must thank and appreciate the confidence which the department has reposed in me. Special thanks to the HOD, the coordinator, my students who are now faculty there. So it's really honoring, it's humbling, and it's a real recognition that I have not made any big brand or any, I'm not known much in academic circles, but you chose for that trust and the confidence that you've proposed. At the outset, thank you. Well, all what we are doing is something that we get to learn from Clove's experiential learning cycle. Clove has explained it using a model. He said concrete experience, reflection, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. All of you here online, all of you have compromised your time and has agreed to come to this session. Come with a lot of experience. You all come with a wealth of experience, academic experience. It could be research experience. It could be industry experience. Well, and today what we're doing is a sort of reflection, sit back and reflect. And then through this process of discussion, debate, some sort of clarity evolves wherein we conceptualize ideas and which we intend to go back and experiment once we go back to the normal. I think that's exactly what we are doing. And I think what we're currently doing is the reflective observation. Sit back and listen to each other. Well, I always also use this slide during my presentation. And I said, I always say that if I have an apple and you have an orange, and we decide to exchange, you get an apple and I get an orange. But if I have an idea and you have another and we decide to exchange, both of us will gain with two different ideas, because that's the power and influence of ideas, provided the ideas are different. If the ideas are similar, you would find a confluence, a marriage of ideas. So I think this is a platform wherein we could share and exchange ideas. It's not just about having ideas which are actionable, which are practical in nature, which can be practiced or executed, because that's something which brings about change. All of us are aspiring for such a change, no matter whether it is at our individual level or at the organizational level that we are all working in. We are looking for such a change. And that, I think, is what we are currently doing. One, at the outset, another thing which I wanted to say is, if you're here for a certificate, or if you're here for my PowerPoint presentation, you'll get the certificate. I'm not going to share the PowerPoint presentations, because at the end of the day, what matters is what you learn in this, in this engagement, in this, sort of discussion. Because I also intend to learn something from you. I don't want to make this a monologue. Let's build a conversation wherein I've posed questions in between, and you will have to constantly engage and contribute, because I also wish to learn something from you. So don't expect two things. One, don't expect my PowerPoint presentation. I'm not going to share that. Two, I want you to pay attention and actively engage and involve in the discussions that we are planning. All right. A bit of reminders, which a few of which Varsha had already mentioned. If possible, it becomes easier for us to trace you back if in case there is any technical issue. Log in using a name and mobile number, and ensure you have a good internet connectivity, because sometimes it might also happen that if I play a video or if I do any sort of audio video quizzes or any such activities, if your internet connectivity is bad, sometimes it may not be compatible. Now, your online presence and engagement is mandatory throughout the session, except barring a few exceptions, like If you have any technical issues, you are expected to be there throughout the session. And you have already done that. Please switch off your audio and video. If you have any questions, you could raise it through the chat box. Always welcome. Raise your questions, doubts. If you have anything to add on, please do that. No exchange of personal text. Yeah, as I said, also feel free to give constructive and critical feedback at the end of the session, either in the session itself or probably after this, we could have a conversation later, right? Now, I've slightly tweaked the title. Though the title is Business Resilience Amidst Chaos, I thought I'll retain as, I would go with Resilience Amidst Chaos, because it's not just, resilience is not just for the business, it's also for the individuals. Individual resilience is equally important as much as the business resilience is. So those are the two perspectives that I'll try to discuss. One, individual resilience. How do we build individual resilience and create clarity and purpose? And second, at the organizational level, how do we create or kind of maintain resilience amidst all the chaos? And what is this chaos that I'm referring to is something which probably in the later phase of the discussion, a little bit of clarity would evolve. I'll go with a quote by Donald Rumsfeld. He said, there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and there is also unknown unknowns. This is very true with the situation that we are currently in. There are a lot of things that we are aware of, there are a lot of things that we are aware that we are not aware of, and there are also unknown unknowns. So in this context, it's not possible for us to make conceptual clarity or have clarity and conviction about what should be done. Based on the little reading that I've done, more because of the personal interest that I have in this topic, is also having discussions with people on this field, both academicians as also people from the industry. I've kind of drawn a bit of perspectives, and that perspective is what I'm trying to share with you. I could be right or wrong. That's why I said your critical feedback is always welcome. If you have anything to contribute, if you feel that I'm factually incorrect, you could point out, right? So because this I consider, as I mentioned earlier, is a learning platform wherein I also end up learning something from you. Well, this is how we need to look at it. There are lots of things you cannot control in this pandemic. One is the virus, and the second is the news, which is more pandemic than anything. The real pandemic, I would say. There is something called infodemic. It's so much of information which is coming up, and so much of speculation theories, we never know which one is right and who's right or who's wrong. And the closing of schools and academic institutions is something which is beyond our control. Nothing can be done. The reactions of the government, how people respond, organizations respond, how the governments respond is something which is beyond your control. The world, the moon, the tides, there are lots of things which you can't control, but there are certain aspects which you can control, and that is something that we need to work on. Your mood, your reactions, your decisions. So all that is something that we'll have to deliberate about, discuss. How do we respond? How do we react? What decisions do we make? What should be the mood that we set, both as an individual, as also a sort of corporate culture that needs to evolve in organizations. So that is something which I'll try to bring in to this discussion. Well, I've divided the presentation into three. The first, I'll talk about the changing business dynamics, how the business over a period, probably about past 10 years, a lot of things have changed. How is business changing? That's one perspective. Second is about the business amidst fourth industrial revolution and VUCA. I'm sure some of you would have read about VUCA, you know what it is, but VUCA, industrial revolution or mass mechanization, has actually created a sort of chaos and confusion as to what is future, when the future is uncertain. So probably, but there are answers to it. How do we find answers to that is what we'll discuss in the third. I'm sorry, there is a typo. That's the third section. Individual and organizational resilience amidst all this chaos. All right, so there are three sections. Sorry for the typo. The first is changing business dynamics. Second, about business amidst the fourth industrial revolution and VUCA. And the third is about individual and organizational resilience amidst all this chaos. Let's begin with changing business dynamics. Now, when we discuss this, I think there are four aspects that we need to consider. There are four different factors that we need to consider. The first one, and the most important I feel today, is the amount of technology that we've integrated into a business. Second is about the economic aspect of a business. Third is the social consequences that it brings in. And fourth, I feel when I say planet, I'm talking about the resources. How do we utilize resources? Now, when we talk about technology, technology is something which should be high tech, but at the same time high touch. How do you maintain connection with your employees using the technology? Well, this is a platform wherein we are staying connected. So how do we stay connected using the most updated technology, high technology, at the same time high touch? And second is about economic value creation. When you kind of think about value creation, there are two things. One is value for the money that you're paying. When you say, when you are paying, I'm talking about the customers. They should get the value for the money that they are paying. The employee should get the value for the effort that you're putting in. So value for money, at the same time maintaining value for, creating value for many. That's another aspect. The third one is about monetizing the changing socio-political dynamics. I'm not talking about being opportunistic. You could start a business and start selling sanitizers. That's sheer opportunism. That's not monetization. What I'm talking about is very constructive value addition that you do through the changing socio-political dynamics. How do you do that? And the last one is, we need to also preserve the resources that we have, because the nature of our future relies a lot on the future of our nature. So those are the four different factors those are the four ways in which we need to approach our business. How are we utilizing the technology platform? Second, how effectively are we utilizing the economic resources? Third, how do we monetize because business ultimately runs on profit. We need to monetize. We need to make money out of it. So how do we monetize in the changing dynamics of business? And the fourth aspect is about how do we preserve, at the same time utilize the resources that we have, which is limited. Now, have a life in business transformed in the past decade? That's a small question which I wish to. If yes, in what ways has it happened? Can I have some responses? I don't know where I get to see all your responses, but can I have some quick responses? In what ways have business transformed? Probably it's better that you can type your responses, and I'll see all that towards the end of the session, wherein we have a time reserved for Q&A. Well, I'll go with my kind of take on it. If you look at the organizations or the kind of business models, you'll see that the car sales have gone down, but you'll find on the other side that the Ola and Uber is rising. It's becoming more common. It's becoming more popular. Restaurants are closing, but the food delivery is increasing. Yeah, it's also becoming common. Tuition classes are decreasing, especially like Byju's is becoming popular. So increasing classes, online classes. Now, traders are struggling, but the marketplace is thriving. It's quite strange. Even amidst all this crisis, the market is kind of stable. Where is this thing happening? Now, the fifth one is demand is down, but the consumption is going up. Now, old commission business is struggling, whereas a lot of online business models are evolving. Cell phone bills are going down, internet penetration is up, government job is decreasing. A lot of startups, especially in a city like Bangalore, you end up seeing a lot of startups. Now, my point here is, it is not the economy or the business which is struggling. Business models are changing. So probably that's one big change which has happened in the past, I would say 5 to 10 years. And I always feel what has changed in the past 1 year is much more than what has changed in the past 10 years. The amount or the pace at which the change is happening, it's quite rapidly, really bad. The second aspect that this report brings in is the job. The households across the globe are reporting lower income, savings, and spending. And 20 to 60% of these decision makers say that they fear a loss of job, which is another trend. We need to look at the business from a larger macro perspective. That's why I'm bringing in multiple dimensions of it, which I want you to kind of cross connect and make sense of it. Now, the third aspect is about the different sectors. Just think about which sector is not affected. Almost every sector, but the most badly hit are the tourism sector, the hospitality sector, the hotel industry. And lots of sectors are really, really hit bad. So telecom industries, retailers, health systems, utilities, they're all, almost every sector is really hit bad. Now, what are the kind of attitude change which is seen especially in the business circles among the business executives? They say businesses everywhere are coping with the urgent needs. That's something which is kind of, kind of a ray of hope. There's a lot of optimism despite all this chaos, despite all this confusions. And this is a global survey which is done in all the continents. And people say, a majority of them say that we will come back to the normal by December, because employees will start, at least the employees will start working on site by December. So I think this is a gist of what the McKinsey report is. And if I may, I don't want to ask this question because it compels me to play a video, the option of which I think would be limited for most of you. I just want you to identify the sectors and industries which are hard hit by the recent pandemic. So the point is, here is almost every sector is hard hit. There's hardly any sector which is not affected. But there's a small video which I intend to play. If there is any kind of disturbance, I'll stop in between. But I thought playing this video will give me a small break and also help me cross-connect a lot of points which I will be able to discuss in the later part of my discussion. Well, it's a very lengthy video, so I thought I'll pause it. Probably I can share the link later, and because it will take away a lot of time of our discussion. Now, let's look at how has this pandemic impacted us. No, is it that there's no impact, or is it that we've gone with teleworking or work from home, or is it that we've become unemployed or underemployed? Or is there anything else that we've all been into? Apart from these four, no impact, teleworking, unemployed, or underemployed. I think most of us fall in this category. The fifth one is overwhelmed with work. No, I was just calculating about a week back, the number of hours, the screen time that most of my colleagues, most of us in the academics are spending. So it comes to around 14 to 15 hours a day. No, your preparation is online, your delivery is online, your research is online, your admission work is online, your entertainment is online, your invigilation duty is online, your examination is online, your assessment is online. What is not online? So average time that a person spends is, all of us are overwhelmed with earlier I had an account of the time that I used to work. Probably, or I could say segregate. No, this much of time I work in the office, and this is where I'm away from office. But today the office time is like 24/7. You end up getting a call anytime, and you're bound to attend. So probably the kind of shift with something which we weren't prepared for. That's why I always feel that organization should come with something called work from home policies. Just like we have office work policies, we need to also have work from home policies. So because most of us, as of now, because the other day I was talking to a very senior marketing manager of Mahindra, and he was telling that for the past 3 months, I don't know what I'm doing for my living. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing to earn my bread and butter, because I actually don't know my personal life and professional life. It has become one. So the point is, most of us are overwhelmed with work. So that's one aspect. So I'm just kind of giving you points which I want you to cross connect and then find the sense out of it. Now, this permanent work from home is not going to be there for long. Satya Nadella, way back in May 18th, 17th, he said that it's actually damaging the emotional well-being of the people. And there's a lot of fatigue, a lot of burnout, internal stress that people are going through. That's another aspect. But at the same time, you'll also get to hear a lot of employees being, if you go with the US statistics, 1 in every 5 people there is without a job as of April 2020. And you get to see this even in India and lots of other companies in India as well. But okay, another thing which I'm giving a broader, a macro perspective so that I can come to the topic. We've still not began discussing what we were supposed to. Now, IMF says by this 2020, this recovery is possible only by 24-25, and we are heading towards a recession. And India's growth will fall down to 1.9. But fortunately, it's much better than the rest of the world, which is -3%. And the recovery is most likely to happen in a V-shaped recovery. Sometimes it could be a W sort of a recovery as well. There might be a dip, and then all of a sudden we might scale up. So the possibilities of having a hope, considering what we've discussed so far, is very less. But that's not the reality. Now, how many pandemics, how many epidemics have we come across? So many we have withstood, and this is one among the several epidemic or the pandemic that we've had. And the number is, of course, escalating, and unless and until a vaccine gets developed, it's going to remain the same as what we are currently experiencing. But again, the ray of hope again there is a lot of countries, when it comes to their health index, global health index, they are prepared to kind of deal with, though, of course, the results aren't very encouraging in so many other countries, so many countries which comes in this list. But there is a hope, there is a lot of effort, conscious effort being made to come out of this, so that not just the business, every sector gets a relief. Now, let's talk something positive now. We've been talking only negatives, negative connotations of the pandemic. Now, 20th February, if I'm not wrong, came this report, wherein the carbon emissions in China has considerably come down. Don't you see a hope there? I mean, let's look at the brighter side of this pandemic. So the nitrogen emissions, which was mostly due to the vehicles and the industries there, was shut and wasn't operational. And that, I think, is one of the positive side of this pandemic. Now, having said that, can I have some quick responses as to identifying the business sectors or the models which are positively hit by the recent pandemic? There are lots of sectors which are not hit at all, or perhaps didn't have a big damage. Now, let me go with my, not all business is down. If you look at Zoom was started by WebEx ex-employees. And all of a sudden, the market share, the share worth of it rose 50%. And I have not used Zoom platform earlier before pandemic, but post-pandemic, we've had multiple sessions. So Zoom is one company, one business model. What about Netflix and YouTube? Now, it was so strange when I read that both YouTube and Netflix had to reduce their internet bandwidth because of their increasing traffic. Something which is quite rare to hear in a business. Deliver it less than what you can actually offer. Now, another is Instagram Live and Facebook Live has also become quite common these days. Now, another business model, Sainsbury. Sainsbury is a chain of supermarkets. Supermarkets is also on a rise, and you'll get to see a lot of fitness industries. Now, shares of Zoom has risen by 50% since February. Due to surge in demand, both YouTube and Netflix, they had to reduce the quality of streaming to ease the pressure on the internet. So strange. Now, Sainsbury supermarkets say they are busier than ever. So there are business models. Not everything is down. There are corporate winners. There are successful and relatively sustainable business models which are functioning. There are lots of cues that we get from these business models. That's why at the outset I'm presenting the ones that are functioning well, relatively well. Now, millions have turned into online yoga and fitness. I'm sure some of you might have also started. A lot of my students are into fitness and yoga. They have started online sessions. So these are certain models which have picked up post-pandemic. But there is, again, there are very, very interesting things which. Now, Airbnb, Uber, and Alibaba, there is something very common in all three. Now, all three had picked up their business when there was a crisis. All right. Now, both Airbnb and Uber rose to popularity in 2007 financial crisis. Till then, it wasn't very common. But then, for an additional source of income, people were looking for renting out options, which is exactly how the Airbnb model works. It is exactly how the Uber works. So both rose to popularity post-pandemic, 2007 financial crisis. Same was the case with Alibaba. Alibaba became popular after the SARS virus. Though it started in 1999, 2002 SARS outbreak is what made it popular. So business models can be run, or probably you could start business models which fit to the context, and you could make it successful. That's the ray of hope which I kind of wanted to leave. So the future is now. What is it that we could do now is something that I'll be discussing in detail to start a venture, or probably to kind of set a reset button for the business, because we have to undo a lot of things that we've been doing in the name of business. And what we do now actually decides the fate of the companies, and the kind of agility with which that we do decides it. Now, I'm sure all of you would agree with the fact that the life has changed post-pandemic. Now, I was talking to some of my friends who are working in the IT sector. So they were telling that this might become the new normal. A lot of people are working in Koramangala, in mid-sized IT companies. What they've done is most of those IT companies have decided to abandon the building which they had took for lease or is paying huge rent. Instead, what they've done is they are paying 1,000 or 2,000 extra to the employees to meet their internet and other expenses, and they're making people to work in smaller offices. Only the people who are most needed to be working in certain small cubicles are asked to report. The rest of them, and most of them, they were telling that this could be the new normal, especially for the IT industry, because there have been a lot of people asking for work from home options, but they weren't much takers for it. But this could change the trajectory of IT sector itself. So there are a lot of things which are pre-COVID and post-COVID is certainly going to be different. As I said, the work, I could make an assessment of how much time I work earlier, but I don't know how much time I end up working because working online, offline meetings. So work time could be any time. The work time could be 24/7. That's one major shift which could happen when it comes to business. Now, what I wish to ask here is, are there any resilient business models? Because that's the topic that we have chosen. Business, how do we build both individual resilience as also organizational resilience? That's a topic that we've chosen. So are there any resilient business models? Now, I'll go with examples so that it becomes easily relatable. There is something common in all these companies. I've listed maybe around 9 companies: Microsoft, HP, IBM, Disney, Burger King, CNN, FedEx, General Motors, and Apple. Now, what is common in all these 9 companies? I'm not able to read your responses, but I'll share my, the answer is that all of these were started during a recession. All these 9 companies. So again, that's the hope which I'm giving. Business is possible during crisis. Business is possible during recession. Business is possible during pandemic. Microsoft, HP, go back to their history, you'll find that they were all started during a recession, global. So my point here is, throughout history, recessions, pandemics, they have changed the trajectory of the governments, they have changed the trajectory of the economies, as much as they have changed the trajectory of businesses. A lot of business models have evolved post-pandemic. Now, another thing, one more example, and then we'll get into the topic. Walmart. Walmart, I'm sure all of you are aware, is a global supermarket chain, and the close competitors were the online sales which were happening through Amazon. In India we have Flipkart and a lot of other business models which became popular. Even the biggest supermarket chain, they had to go online. So that's one thing which most organizations will be forced to do now. Online presence becomes mandatory. They've done that. It's not during pandemic, but I'm talking about even a big giant like Walmart had to start something online, and they have something called Walmart.com, which is a close competitor now for all other the earlier giants in the segment. All right. So again, I will go with examples so that, as I said, world's largest taxi company owns no vehicles. Do you know which company it is? This is quite a lot, exercised during our class discussions. You have Uber. World's largest accommodation provider owns no real estate, which is Airbnb. They don't own any of the accommodation. The most popular media provider creates no content, which is Facebook. The most valuable for 2 companies sells no cameras. The fastest growing television network, they don't lay any cable, but that's Netflix. And the most valuable retailer, it's not Amazon, it is, I've spoken about it, Alibaba. So what is it that you're seeing? I was talking about the evolving or the changing business models. What is common? What is a common thread in all these 6 cases? Now, most of these business models, they have not existed 10 years before, 10 or 15 years before, and all emerged out of divergent thinking. So that's another thing. So I was talking about the importance of having an online presence. That's something which is important. which most organizations, see, when I'm quoting examples, this is more relevant for mid-size and larger organizations. Probably the dynamics with which the startups are functioning, or in a small retail stores or a kirana stores are functioning, are entirely different. I'm talking more in the context of mid and in a slightly bigger organizations, right? So they'll have to go with online, something to do with online, and something to do with divergent thinking. Now, how do we do that is something we'll discuss. Now, I have a few more examples. I prefer in my classes going with examples because it becomes easily relatable for the students. Now, post-pandemic, I'm quoting 4 examples and 4 different methods in which organizations have done value creation for their customers is also to the communities. Now, the first example, and this I've taken again, as I said in the beginning, I've not researched anything on my own. Most of it, I've taken it from McKinsey's report or probably World Bank report. So this is again another report, reimagining the post-pandemic, I think the same report which I was referring to, McKinsey. They quoted 4 different examples. The first example is where a fast food chain that had to shutter its operations avoided layoffs by partnering with a health and fitness retailer. So that could be a strategy, partnering with something which you've not ventured into. Yeah. The second one large retailer dusted off a pandemic initiative to launch a curbside delivery business. So you have to kind of scrap an idea which you think won't be working. So the first strategy is about partnering, finding like-minded people, business models wherein you could partner. Second is about scrapping an idea which you think won't work. So dust off. Then the third option is giving work from home options. A financial services company, in just 2 days, 1,000 of its global operations staff were given training, and within 72 hours, they ensured business continuity. So they've chosen, this report has chosen to keep the names of the organizations as anonymous, which normally they don't do, but I was so surprised. But the point here they're trying to bring in is, the last aspect is, the last example is, a retail conglomerate in the Middle East retained 1,000 people in 2 days, but what they did is they redeployed them in some other sector, grocery retailing. You get this? So the point is, you'll have to look for strategies which might work, which works for you. It could be partnering model, it could be dusting off an idea, it could be work from home options, or completely redeploying your staff in something which the organization had not ventured into, had not thought of earlier. Yeah. So those are some of the strategies which organizations have practiced, and they are proving it successful. Now, when I say this is something which stuck my mind. Hope was not a strategy. Having hope that someday the vaccine will come, or having a hope that things will change, or having a hope that luck will change my business, or having no hope and having fear is something which is the bad thing to do for you, as also for your business. You have to actually strategize something that you have to either reform, you have to restructure, or remove things because COVID-19 will force the rebirth of many of the industries and reimagine the models of consumption, supply, interaction, productivity. All of that will have to be reset or restructured or redesigned, reformed or removed, whatever ways you could interpret it, right? So how do we do that? Again, I'm just setting a context so that we can get into the topic. Now, this is something which was so shocking. And I was talking about hope is not a strategy. You have to actually strategize. You have to work on your hope. You have to plan something. Yeah. But the sad part was something which is shocking, is only 8% of the company executives excel at both strategy and execution. This, again, is a study done by Harvard Business School, 2017 though, how to excel at both strategy and execution. Majority of the company executives are not good at execution. They might be good at strategizing. So that's again, but you'll have to think about how do we make it more effective. This is probably a time where, which gives us scope for such a self-reflection. Now, I just want you to read what I've written in the box. This again, as I said, I had referred to another source of McKinsey. They say, amid the fear and uncertainty, when people are energized as companies make good on purpose statements, when a company actually work on their statements, when I say statements, those are mission and vision statements, eliminate bureaucracy, empower previously untested leaders with bigger responsibilities, and turbo change decision making, make quick decisions, swift decisions. Yeah, that would bring about a lot of change, is what McKinsey says. Yeah, but what are those aspects that you need to consider while you make a decision? Number one, you'll have to shape, design, or devise a growth strategy. Now, when you go for interviews, there's a cliche question: where do you want to see yourself in the next 5 years? The same question, why not you ask about your business? Ask yourself, where do you want to see your business? You have to shape, make some conscious, calculated risk and bold growth strategy. That's first suggestion in this report. The second is, we need to inspire great leaders and teams. This is a time where you'll have to identify people who actually stand for the values that your organization intends to. There are a lot of people you'll have to discover within your organization. Give them responsibilities. When you trust people, those people will trust the organization. This is what, not what I'm saying, this is what most of the researchers are saying. When you empower people, when you assign leadership roles, when you make them responsible, they also become accountable. Yeah, to kind of so that's another strategy. Boost. That's the third aspect is, how do you, even amidst all this pandemic, how do you deliver the customer value which you've been delivering? Of course, not in the same pace or probably in the same size and shape what you've been doing during, we may use the word normal days, but still, how do you maintain that customer relationship, maintain the customer loyalty? That's another aspect that you need to think about or work on. The fourth is about improving the cash flow management. Fifth is operational efficiency. We'll discuss all of these in detail. That's why I'm just rushing through the slides. Overall operational efficiency, how do we do that? It's also time to think about building something new, or probably we have seen examples of partnering with something, or probably you could buy out something. It's a time for mergers and acquisitions, or try out any strategy. You need to expand your portfolio. It's also a time that we could do that. And the last option that they give, or probably it's a planned option, is about moving quickly on mergers and acquisition. It's a good time. I was just talking to people in the real estate. A lot of our students are working with Prestige, and they were telling it's a good time to invest in the real estate because people are hopeless. A lot of people who are running on a rolling cash. They wanted money, so it's a desperate of. I don't know whether you could call it an opportunism, but if people are looking for investment, people were saying, people in this sector were saying it's a good time. So 7 tips as per the report by the McKinsey is about these 7 aspects. McKinsey also talks about post-pandemic organization, how to shape post-pandemic organization, or how will the organizations be assessed. And they say there are 3 aspects which people would look at. When I say people, it is not just the customers, it is also the employees. Because customers and employees and the society has a longer memory. They'll never forget. And I was talking about another professor at IIM Bangalore, and he said ethics is also accounted during crisis. How you deal with your employees when your organization is in crisis, when the economy is in crisis, speaks volumes about what ethics, what value systems that you hold, because that creates a brand, that actually creates loyalty, that actually creates an institution or an organization. So my point here is, post-pandemic, how will the organization take shape, or what are the aspects that people would look at? One is the purpose, what the organization stand for, or I have mentioned it here, who we are, how we operate, and how we grow. During this crisis, how do we grow amidst this crisis? Let's look at these three in detail. Now, of course, these are also relevant, or more, the management imperatives even in normal times. But here, what happens during a crisis is it becomes a test bed for intense experimentation and soul searching. People would relook at what they've written in their mission statements, and they would assess whether they actually abide by what they say, whether they walk the talk. Yeah. So it's a time for such, it's a test bed for leadership. It's a test bed for the organization's corporate policies. It's a test bed for organizations' ethics and values. Yeah. So purpose, culture, and value, those are the three aspects that gets judged by your customers as also your employees. All right. Now, when I say purpose, what is purpose? Now, purpose is, what is it that we stand for, who we are. Now, if you have a strong culture and a shared sense of purpose, I'm again relying on the report of McKinsey, reimagining the post-pandemic organization. They say that if you have a strong culture and a shared sense of purpose that your leaders role model every day, you can weather the storm better than the most. So if the leaders are walking the talk, what they have written in their mission statements, I think that is a hope. Second, all of them will have long memories. Customers, your suppliers, communities, your employees. So what you do during a crisis, and this I think is more applicable for those people who represent the business group. How you treat. I was feeling so sorry for a lot of my friends, some of my students who are in the academic, and they were telling, I don't want to mention the name of the organization, but they were telling, most of them were asked to work for 2.5 months. In fact, they had invited me for one of their webinars, but then later they called me up and said, sir, we have cancelled it. And I was surprised and asked why, what happened. They said, sir, they've removed us and we don't know what our future is. And they haven't paid the salary also for the past 2.5 months. So shocking. I mean, in a city like Bangalore, a very well-reputed academic institution has done that. So my point is, people will remember all this. How you're dealing with your employees, your customers, your suppliers, your communities. So that's the purpose. Are you standing up for the values that you always talk about? Put up or shut up. This is a put up or shut up time. Defining the purpose in slogans and statements is an easy thing to do. What makes real purpose is following through on the implications, and which becomes the guide, the choices that you make. And the fourth is, company is not a company unless it is underpinned by this desire to be together. If there is a sense of belongingness, if there is a sense of togetherness, even amidst crisis, by the way you treat your employees, by the way you reward your employees, by the way you recognize, give them responsibilities, I think you'll be judged. You will be rewarded in the long run. Today morning I was listening to another lecture of by a professor at Harvard, and he was telling that good leadership never think about short-term gains. Good leadership is all about long-term gains. Long-term implications of your decision is what makes a good leader. What consequences any decision brings in the kind of repercussions any decision will have is what defines good leadership as. Long-term vision. Yeah. So the purpose is, what is it that the organization, who we are, what is it that we stand for? Second is about the value, how we operate. Of course, who we are is a sort of self-realization which we need to have. The other is how we operate. Now, the economic effects are revealing a lot of things, and a lot of things that get revealed aren't, I would say, aren't encouraging. I mean, many don't like what they are learning during this crisis. It feels so good to see the mission statements, but that's not what in practice that they're not walking the talk. They're not practicing what they're preaching. It's a realization which most of the employees. So how is it that you're operating is another aspect that would get judged. Now, I think it's also, I think I've already mentioned about it. It's time that organizations devise something called work from home policy, providing flexibility and also having contingency plans. With people, we can rebuild, but with money, we cannot. I mean, this is a hard reality. When there is a crisis, only people can find a solution. The wealth or the technology, the brain is only. So you have to understand that the real asset of an organization is not technology or the infrastructure. The real asset of the organization is your people, right? All right. So that's another aspect. Now, the third point is your organization too bureaucratic? If it's too bureaucratic, insular, inflexible, and is not accommodating change, you will be thrown out of the market. That is another. So the last point is focus on profit. If you're focusing more on profit than on people, I think you'll get judged. So what is it? How are you operating is also something that gets judged during this time. So the first aspect that we've discussed was what is about the purpose, and the second is about the value that organizations are standing up for. Now, the third aspect is the culture. There's a saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. You could strategize everything, but what if it in the overall organizational culture, it doesn't reflect? I think you're compromising a lot on what you stand up for. I mean, what the values that you have posted in your mission statement. So that's another aspect which you have. If you are empathetic towards your employees, as also your customers, I think in the long run, you would reward benefit. So those were the three aspects which I wanted to discuss. And then as companies award newer ways of working at a speed and at a scale, three lessons are emerging. Now, the first one is flatter, faster, non-hierarchical structures and approaches are going to sustain for long. Resilience can be built only through flatter organizations. Faster, quicker. There's something called agility in your decision. What is agility? Like you make quick decisions, swift decisions, rapid decisions. The flatter, faster, non-hierarchical structures and approaches is going to make you more resilient. Second is the need to turbo change decision making, make people responsible, accountable, identify leadership. We've already discussed that. The reminder of the role of talent in making everything go. It's not the resources, it is not the money, it is not the technology, it is the people and their talent which is important, is what we organizations need to realize, businessmen need to realize. Because as I said, we could rebuild if there are people, only if there are people, right? Okay, now, how do we rebuild? One, there are three approaches. Again, this report suggests adopt an ecosystem mindset, wherein you become, everyone is made to feel a sense of being together. Second suggestion is embrace data-rich technology platforms, which most organization has already shifted to, including the Zoom, the meeting platforms, WebEx platforms, or co-working online platforms, and a lot of technology embedded platforms are integrated in the workspace. That's something which is unavoidable. Adopt an ecosystem mindset. Second is adopting technology, and the third one is learning how to learn. It is about constant learning, about how to survive is what makes you relevant, both at an individual level as also as the organizational level. Now, a couple of things are going to change. A couple of things where I'm becoming very specific. One, there will be a lot of consumer and employee anxiety, which I'm sure all of you would agree. Consumer as to what servers, about the uncertainty of the future and the quality of service which they've been experiencing earlier. Employees, the uncertainty about. So that is another aspect which you may have to deal with. As a businessman, they'll have to deal with the anxiety of consumers and employees. How do we strategize that? Think about it. I had a professor, F. Matthew. Whenever he discussed and gives a brilliant thought, he would say, you think about it. Now that's exactly what I also wanted to say. Just think about it. I'm not God. I'm not preaching things which aren't feasible. I'm just collated a few ideas which I found is relevant and is trying to cross connect and make sense through this discussion. The points which should compel you to think. So my suggestion is think about it. How do we deal with consumers' anxiety as also the employees' anxiety? Now, in terms of marketing, there are 3 tips which, again, another Planet Media, Canberra is a web designing consultant, but they also talk a lot about how to reposition, rebrand organizations in crisis. There are 3 things which they say. Number 1 is communicate and stay connected with your clients, is also with your employees. Now, you need to see what becomes your business is what you are doing online. Yeah, your website becomes the face of your business. So website should be updated. What if you have an old address or an old phone number which is not reachable even, so it speaks bad about your business. So it's time that a lot of business organizations think about updating their websites, because that becomes the face. Through brand awareness, trust, loyalty can be built only through staying connected with your clients. And the only option that we have currently is staying connected online. It could be through WhatsApp, it could be through Facebook or social media platforms, through your website primarily. Second is ensure that your business is always seen online rather than staying in the dark mode. It is a perfect opportunity to get into the light and shine. You need to be there. Your presence has to be there. Maybe in terms of the number of sales that you're doing, or every data should be transparent. And you need to empathize, update I think articles, posts, newsletters, feeds should be authentic, real, and relevant, because that speaks volumes about what your business is. So I've been talking about how to deal with the employees. I've been talking about what are the 2 primary concerns that you'll have to deal with. The concern of your employees is also the concern of your customers. And the other is about staying connected with your customers or your clients, and be authentic, be real, be transparent, be updated, be relevant, be recent. That's the only way in which you can build trust, you can build loyalty. I'm so sorry. So there are multiple platforms which I don't want to mention. I'm sure all of you are familiar about this. Microsoft, you have FaceTime. With Apple, you have Facebook, Instagram, and lots of other options are there. The other aspect that we need to think about is how do we remain agile? Agility is another quality which organizations will have to work on. Agility is about accomplishing small, focused goals at a light speed. So agility, flexibility, and adaptability are 3 things which would decide the future, or which would decide the resilience of your business. All right. So that's another aspect that business organizations, as also individuals, will have to. How do you stay updated? Even while you are at home, even while you are working from home, how do you stay relevant? How do you stay updated? Is something both at the individual as also at the organizational level have to think about. Now, let me conclude the first part of the discussion. I'm not very sure how much time I have. So the checklist is 10 questions every business owner should ask to thrive the post-pandemic. It's just a run through of a few aspects, which is quite evident for most of you who are working in the segment, most of the businessmen. But I think this Sharon Cully Business Systems is a business consulting group, and they're beautifully articulated. How do we approach, and what are the focus areas? What should be the thrust areas of business when they're thinking about, restarting their business? Now, the first is, if you're able to switch off your phone and not answer any questions about your business for more than 3 days, I think you are in place. I mean, if you're not able to, that's one area which you'll have to work on, the overall management of the organization. Second is, if the team members demonstrate the type of attitude, behaviors, and shared values that you would like your business to do, I think you are in. But if they are not, that's another. So management, culture, sales. Once you have a lead, do you always use the best way to convert the lead into a customer? I was talking to somebody who was working with SAP, and he was telling it's a very, very it's easy to say, but it's a very difficult time to convert a lead into sales. But if you have a lead, but if you fail to convert, I think that's another area. Sales, cash flow. Do you know exactly what your immediate cash position is on a weekly basis? That's another aspect that a businessman has to think about. People, are you, all of your team members, clear about how to do their job? I mean, if there is lack of, let's say, role clarity, it leads to further chaos. Are they able to make their own independent decisions? Have you empowered them to make their own independent decisions? You know, from a businessman's perspective, I'm talking. These are certain aspects, 5 aspects. There are 5 more. Another is strategy. You have a clearly defined vision for your business, describing where you would like to be in the next 3 to 5 years in time. Marketing. Do you have more than 3 reliable ways through which consistently generate leads for your business? Fulfillment, are you able to consistently delight your customers while delivering your products? Administration, is 85% of your time spent on tasks that directly increase your profit or move your company towards your vision? I mean, then that's something which you'll have to really think about. Then, is it offering adequate, work-life balance, personal, professional life balance? So these are the kind of checklist I think we can work on, or rather a businessman has to work on when they are planning to devise. And I think that's a little more complicated, but I don't want to go in detail, but you need to have devise strategies and also build an operational model based on structures, how to become accountable in terms of governance, and also have an execution plan for at least 5 to 6 years ahead. So that's how you could connect, bridge the gap between strategy and execution. That's the point wherein we started, because I said only 9% of the executives are able to actually execute what they're strategizing. But I mean, if there is a plan of action, I think things can be a lot better. So my point before I kind of wind up the first part of the discussion, I don't know how much time I have because it's already 12:19. Do I have adequate time? Can I get some response? Somebody could unmute and tell me how much time, how much more time, so that I can structure my presentation accordingly. There are lots of things which. How much time do I have?
So maybe another 20 minutes.
Great. Okay, that's fair enough. So the organizations, it's high time that they'll have to think about either forming or restructuring or removing. I think I've already mentioned that. See, these are all revelations which would happen this time. The more organized and value-driven your business is, the more prepared you are. You don't have to work much. But if you are in a chaos, it's because you aren't organized. The business isn't organized. You aren't driven by certain aspects that we've discussed: value, culture, purpose, all that. So, okay. Another aspect which I felt we need to discuss is this is also a time for innovation and experimentation. Now, I have an example. It's a sort of weird example, but in Europe, stripping is quite common. You have strip clubs, you have pubs, you have nude clubs, and all that. So there were a lot of strippers who were not, for them that was their full-time profession, who were finding it difficult to find an alternative source of income, because mobilizing people or getting together is something which is really difficult these days, because of social distancing norms and all that. So what they did is they started a venture called Boober Eats. All right, Boober Eats sounds so weird. What they do is they started venturing into home delivery. They would deliver the food which these people order online, and they would go bare breast. It's a very interesting. Strippers staff Boober Eats delivery service during coronavirus lockdown is an innovation that they've done. And it's an experimentation. This is how they do it. With clubs closed and these strippers in Oregon, they take to topless food delivery. So my point here is, it's a time that organizations also have to think innovatively, creatively to find a solution. And there is no one size which fits all. There is no one standard solution which I can offer, which anybody could offer. Because as I said, there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, there are unknown unknowns. So nobody can make it predictions. But the point is, we have to, organizations, business groups have to find out creative solutions which fits into their culture, their values, or whatever they stand up for. Now, can you just tell me some business ideas which probably that's would kind of summarize my first part of discussion, pandemic created businesses. There are lots of interesting business models or possibilities of creating business models amidst this crisis. Again, I say, I'm not talking about opportunism. If you're selling sanitizer, it's your opportunism. That's not the business model I'm talking about. Something which, I always talk in my entrepreneurship class that when you create value, profit would follow. But when your intention is only profit, that's a short term, you're not a good leader. You're just a businessman. But when your objective is about creating value for people, that's the basic difference between an entrepreneur and a businessman. Businessman's focus is about making money, whereas an entrepreneur's focus is about creating value for people. When you create value, profit would follow. Now, how do you create value through your business model? That's something, what are the different models? I'll just maybe suggest around 10 or 15 business models, possible business models, which could evolve out of this pandemic. Number one is a lot of parents at home are struggling to deal with their kids. How do we engage the kids? A lot of YouTubers have come up with cooking classes, fitness classes, are teaching music, teaching dance online. If there are business models which can evolve to find solutions, as I said, to create value for the parents, I think it's a good time to begin. Another, content creators, a lot of people, YouTubers, podcasters are creating brilliant content. A lot of my students, there's something, Writers and Geek, which is run by one of my students, Shankar Padmanabhan and Vishnu Padmanabhan, and they're doing a brilliant job. They've created amazing content. YouTubers, podcasters, for them, it's a time to monetize. The third is events. If you can organize small events. Yesterday I was talking to Jeevan Vishal Anand Reddy. His live performance was retweeted by a very popular singer in Bangalore, and which is kind of taking him places. I'm forgetting his name. So the point is, a lot of artists are actually struggling. At least some of us we have some sort of a saving, but think about the artists, think about the live performers, think about, the migrant workers. If you can create a business model, maybe a small event, and that could be a business model to do live performances. So migrant workers, I didn't address that, but I haven't solution for that because it's something altogether different thing which needs to be discussed. It could be probably another webinar altogether because there are lots of things which comes to my mind. But the point is, let's talk about artist performers. Struggling to make both ends meet because their parents have become jobless. They don't have money to pay their fees even. So if you can create a business model wherein you could connect them with corporates who are willing to take them for small internships, and corporate would also be happy because they will get work done at a cheaper rate. Connecting the needy students with companies, remote work, which is possible these days. Health and fitness, professional counseling, software development, app developments. See, it is mandatory now. I would say it will become mandatory for all the organizations to have an online presence, to all the organizations to have an app, to have a website. So software solutions, app developments could be another that's possible. So gardening, I have one of my neighbor, he's a lawyer by profession, but he's got into gardening. And gardening, if you have the expertise in it, and if you start a YouTube channel and monetize on it, that's possible. Another friend of mine is doing print on demand. It's a customized product delivery for let's say on birthdays, or those are business models which are possible. Developing esports, VR and AR integrated, that's also possible. Help develop personal brand for jobless. Okay, a lot of known people in the field of music, in the field of, let's say, sports, in the field of literature, painting, art, they're struggling, dancers. So if you can create if you're good with personal branding, help them create a personal brand for themselves and create value during. For the jobless, I've put in single quotes. It's not that they're actually jobless, but they don't find a platform to showcase their talent. They might not be good at online platforms. If you can develop a business model for creating personal brand for people, consultant to convert brick and mortar business. So this is a time when most of the organizations who followed only the brick and mortar business would realize that online presence is a must. So if you have the expertise of working as a consultant for converting the brick and mortar business to go online, I think that could be another business model. Online education. A lot of my students, Nikita Mehta, she has gone into, I'm forgetting, an online platform. She teaches almost every alternate day. She would post a video in online education and monetize it. E-commerce delivery, drop shipping is a concept which is becoming popular. Digital marketing, stock market investing, developing online collaboration tools. Just like Zoom, just like, I remember one alumni association, I'm not able to recollect which academic institution it is, it's based out of UK, had created an online platform for the alumni to connect, and this happened post-pandemic. And okay, what is more interesting is, two of my students who are in two different parts of the globe, they're working together and is developing a software. You need not work together, you could work virtually. And they're developing a video game, and they're good at it. So those kind of possibilities are there. Probably pandemic had made us realize that working online is a huge possibility. Yeah. So multiple options are there. So everything is not down. Every business is not down. There are huge multiple choices, multiple options for organizations to. Okay. Amidst all this, what I'm trying to say is, bigger players have already, much before the pandemic, they've already ventured into integrating all technologies possible. Amazon, Prime Air, they do door-to-door delivery using drones. Now, last year when I taught entrepreneurship, the students had come up with a business plan where the petrol would be delivered for using a drone. It's an interesting business model. Many of us get stuck in the midway, and you make an order using an app, and then the drone delivers the petrol wherever you are. It's an amazing business model. So what I'm trying to say is, it's a time for us to reflect and think about possibilities of integrating technology into business. So Amazon Go. Amazon is something which was common, which was there only online. But Amazon is also shifting to offline modes. What is Amazon Go? You just go there, grab the product and come back. Everything is integrated with technology, and your money, the cash deduction, everything happens with the technology which is integrated there. So the convenience store, Amazon Go is, convenience there is just go there, grab your product, come back. That's it. Amazing. So my point before I conclude is about who will be the winners in the post-pandemic economy. Organizations which realize the value of online platforms. I've just referred to as cloud computing because that's something which I found in the V forum. Again, those were the suggestions. Second, organizations which go with automation and artificial intelligence. And third aspect is about shows a huge amount of resilience and agility in what we are doing. So those are the three things which I know, because of paucity of time, I'm not going in detail. But another thing which is going to change a lot amidst all this pandemic is the consumer behavior. Now, the way we buy, how we buy, what we buy, from whom we buy, all are going to change. Now, let me ask you a very simple question. When was the last time we wore a suit or a tie or a shoe. I mean, most of us, of course, today, since it's a formal presentation, I wore a shirt. But normally, work from home is more like wearing, whatever we are convenient about. So our purchasing pattern, purchasing behavior might change post. It's not might change; it would change. So consumer behavior is another aspect which needs to be researched by the business group. How are they going to change? What are they going to change? Buy, or from whom, from where? All those things are the aspects that one needs to look at. Now, this is a very interesting question. Who led the digital transformation of your organization? Now, I've spoken a lot. I've been talking about having a hope. Talking about strategizing, planning, all that. But one thing for sure, what is going to happen is the digital transformation. Who led? I came across this cartoon a couple of weeks back. Who led the digital transformation of your organization? It won't be chief executive officer. It won't be the chief technical officer. It would certainly be the COVID. COVID at least would compel the business groups to realize the potential of online, or probably the importance of going online. So I think COVID has actually set a reset button for most of the business groups, and most of the business groups have at least understood the importance of efficiency and probably the difference between efficiency and resilience. Now, efficiency in what we have been thinking about what is working may not necessarily work henceforth because of a lot of other things which has come. So that was the first part of my presentation. I would actually need at least the same amount of time to complete the rest of my presentation, but I don't know how far I can do that. But I'll quickly run through the slides since if you give me the permission, I would kind of wind up in another 10 minutes. All right. So the second part of my presentation is about business amidst fourth industrial revolution. Now, what is fourth industrial revolution? I'll quickly run through. Are we equipping? I'll skip quite a few slides. See, all of these, the chaos, the confusion that we are talking about today is not just a pandemic. There's so many things which had happened, which had changed the business models. I've just listed a few. Artificial intelligence, robotics, humanoids, virtual reality, augmented reality, drones, self-driving, all of these have changed the way in which business organizations are functioning. And probably, I'll skip this as well, because there are more important things which I think I need to discuss. This kind of summarizes what is fourth industrial revolution, and it's not an exhaustive list. This was shared by one of my friends, and he had written it in this in Malayalam Unorva. There are a lot of things which has come, which has become a part of the fourth industrial revolution, which we cannot ignore. We need to integrate those in business in some of the other forms, right? There is an interesting article, The Future of You, written by Ray Kurzweil, and The Dawn of Singularity. It's an amazing article. It's an amazing report which talks about from 2019 till 2099 what all changes the business, or in fact the world would witness, and how one should be prepared for. I'll skip a lot of things which was So this fourth industrial revolution had actually brought in, or has also added to something called VUCA, which is, I'm sure you know, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, things have become quite volatile. You don't know what is relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow. A lot of things are uncertain. Our jobs are uncertain. There is something called gig economy, which is evolving. What is gig economy? You don't have a permanent job. You're asked, you're called, you're invited for a task. You complete the task and you're paid. That's it. So gig economy is becoming quite common. So I'll come to it in detail later. So there is a lot of uncertainty about job. There is a lot of uncertainty about business. There are a lot of uncertainty about whether a product would remain or relevant. And the other one is complexity. The post-pandemic is also the fourth industrial revolution. The way in which business organizations are functioning is very complex and ambiguous, because a lot of things are driven by data. A lot of things are driven by complex technology platforms, which I think would replace the human interventions in the workspaces. So this probably is what chaos I was referring to at the beginning of the session. And how do we build individual and organizational resilience? So I was talking about two aspects: before and after Corona business models, different types. But I think it's not before and after Corona business models. It should be before vaccine and after vaccine, because till vaccine is invented, everything is uncertain. We can't even categorize it before and after Corona. Still vaccine, I think the business models are going to change. And the fourth industrial revolution and the VUCA is what chaos, which I was referring to. And amidst both of these, how do we build resilience? That's something which but I feel we are all in a convergence point. And the third aspect that I'll be discussing is about building individual and organizational resilience. Now, what do you think are we good at, which machines cannot do? Think about it. Just as I say, think about it. Just as my professor, F. Matthew, would say, think about it. There are machines don't have common sense. They don't have intuition. They don't have creativity, empathy, and versatility. And that is where probably the human beings still have an edge over technology. No matter whether the fourth industrial revolution comes, no matter whether a pandemic comes. I think I've mentioned it a number of times. Only people can rebuild. No technology can substitute people. Yeah, trust people. Trust on the creativity of people. Now, think about this is a report by World Economic Forum. If you want to stay relevant, there are 10 different skill sets which World Economic Forum had mentioned. So if you develop those skills, you can stay relevant, is what my concluding remark is. And there is also something which, again, they emphasize on is creating platforms of creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, and also emotional intelligence. There is, another article which I want you to read about is contextual intelligence. Now, that is something which would make individuals and organizations relevant. What is contextual? There is an article by Harvard Business Review. Please do read that. Amazing, classic piece of work. Is ability to apply knowledge to the real world scenarios and situations. Now, McKinsey, this is probably my second or third last slide. Resolve, resilience, return, reimagination, and reform. Those are the 5 stages which McKinsey says individuals and organizations can build, rebuild, or have a restart. What is resolve? The first is address the immediate challenges which COVID represents to institutions, workforce, customers, technology. Most of the organizations have done that. That transition has already happened. Second is about building resilience. Resilience more in terms of cash management, because if I may take my own organization's experience, a lot of students are not able to pay the fees, which has actually brought down the revenue of the organization. But of course, they haven't compromised none of our salary. But the point is, we have to understand this. Resilience, how do we manage the cash? Immediate, we have to empathize with both the students as also with the employees. Similarly, in an organization, we have to empathize with both the customers as also with the employees. Now, how do we build resilience amidst all this? The third is have a detailed plan of action how do you return back to business. Yeah, and the fourth is about reimagining the next normal. The world certainly is not going to be the same. It will change, and as I said, the way in which, what, where, when, how, the 5 W's and 1 H is going to change. And the fifth is about be clear about how regulatory and competitive environments, that is also going to change, especially at the government level. A lot of relaxations in tax and repayment, extending the days, all of those things have happened. So must happen with organizations, which, those are the 5 stages of, bouncing back to the new world normal, which McKinsey suggests: resolve, resilience, building resilience, return, reimagination, and reform. Now, if you, I'll also suggest, because most of the times, if you have a model, it would simplify complex things. So how do you plan it? There is something called Eisenhower matrix, which you can do. What to do urgently, what is more urgent, what is more important, do, plan, delegate, and what can be eliminated. I mean, you could try out Eisenhower matrix, or probably a Kanban board for rebuilding your business. Now, before I conclude, I came across a speech by Nelson Mandela. In fact, it was not a speech, an interview. And somebody was asking him, Nelson Mandela, you've been in prison for almost 27 years. This man was behind the bars for 27 years. And how did you survive? How were you surviving amidst all the hard labor? And he said, his response is a classic response for most of us today, not just for us, as also for organization. He said, I wasn't surviving, I was preparing. That's a brilliant way of looking at life. So I think that's a time that this is a time which most organizations should be preparing for bouncing back. And how to do, I've just given you certain insights. I'm no God. I've just drawn ideas from multiple sources. And I hope in this course of maybe around 2 hours of our discussion, I'm not sure how much time I had taken, some probably insights, some ideas I could share. And if there are any questions, if there are anything that I could, I'm not saying that I'll be able to give you clarity, or but probably a half-baked answer, some lead, some suggestions, which I'll be able to give. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to take it right now.
Okay, all right. Before we head towards the question answer session, let me tell you, this is one of the best presentation and webinar that we have seen. And as Sir mentioned in one of the pandemic created business slides as such, I would like to tell this that Mr. Vishal Anand Reddy's video was being highlighted by Raghu Dikshit of Bangalore.
Oh yeah, yes. I forgot. Yeah, yesterday, the day before, Vishal Anand's video was reposted, and Vishal became very popular.
Yes, and one more thing is happy to say that Miss Nikita Mehta, she's also been my classmate, has started up an online class session in Unacademy by economics teacher, being an economics teacher. That's really an amazing experience to see people around that. So having said that, I think we shall move now to the question answer session, and I would request Ms. Lakshmi, the faculty from the Department of Commerce, to moderate the questions and reach out to our resource person for the day.
Good afternoon, sir. I have listed out few questions. Most of the questions you have answered in the presentations, but here are 2-3 questions I would like to ask you. First question is from Sandeep Shetty. Question is, what do you mean by proactive decision making during this pandemic scenario?
Okay, that's something, I don't know whether I've mentioned it in my presentation. I'm not very sure. I don't think I had mentioned something called proactive decision making. Being proactive is about your ability to visualize what the future would be. And it's all about being prepared for any uncertainty.
Okay, so thank you. So the next question is from Sheikh Ali. It says, how would Atmanirbhar affect Indian business or Indian company?
Among MI phone, Oppo, those are all Chinese brands. But at the same time, we had a lot of Indian brands which weren't popular. Despite being in the market, people don't go for a lot of Indian brands. Carbon is an Indian brand. Yeah, a lot of other brands are there, which I'm not able to recollect. But the point here is, we cannot have only by, say, abandoning or only by quitting certain countries' brand of products. We have to raise, I think people have mentioned Carbon, Lava, those are all Indian brands, but we didn't buy those products. We bought MI, we bought Oppo, we bought so many other Chinese brands. Why? Because they were able to provide quality products at a cheaper price. So unless and until we raise a standard, we increase the quality and offer products at a cheaper price, I think people will continue using Chinese products. I mean, Atmanirbhar, of course, as a concept, is a brilliant concept. It is an aspiration. It's a hope for Indian industries. But it's not just about aspiration. I know I always said, at the beginning of my presentation, I said, hope is not a strategy. We have to really work and raise a standard. Otherwise, people will continue with other brands which are there in the market.
Okay, sir. The next question is like this from Dr. Sanchita Ghosh. Will a lot of business disappear in this situation? If so, will world economy see some major shifts economically and politically?
Yes, I think I had covered that, if not directly, indirectly. And organizations which are unwilling to change, organizations which are unwilling to adapt newer technologies would certainly become redundant and would naturally thrown out of the market. They would, please send the feedback link. I think I'm also able to read the questions right now. So the point is, how do you stay relevant at the same time? How do you stay updated is what decides the fate of any organizations.
Lakshmi, ma'am, can you please unmute yourself, Lakshmi, ma'am?
Sorry. So the next question is from Vijay Kumar. The question is like, sir, any suggestions from your end to the educational institution to bring back to its old form?
It won't be the old form. See, most of our students would have already started liking faculties who make sense for them. Now, yesterday I have a small discussion group, and yesterday I was having a discussion in that, asking them, when we mark attendance, are we actually marking the attendance or the student's presence? I mean, attendance, I'm asking about the attention. Now, how do you pay, or when does students pay attention in a class? Only when the faculty is able to connect with the students. Now, if in an online platform, students are disconnected, you should blame the faculty and not the student. So my point is, a lot of students would start loving online platforms, and it's quite natural that people would shift towards online mode of learning. And it wouldn't be normal. The world henceforth, not just academics, but even the business or our normal life wouldn't be the same as what it was prior to the pandemic.
So the question from M. Sharavanan, it is like, how to improve the migrated laborers?
It's so sad and for any policy decision, just think about it. Who are the ones who get hit the worst? It's always these migrant laborers or people of that section of the society who get hit the worst. Now, but unfortunately, if you look at Indian statistics, it is said that more than 70% of the people are in the unorganized sector. Unless and until today morning, I was also listening to a lecture by All India Management Association in which they raised this question, and this is not my answer. I'm parroting what they were discussing. So their suggestion is, unless and until we have at least 50% of these people in the organized sector, things, we have to bring them to the organized sector. That's organizational restructuring which has to happen post-pandemic. The situation is going to stay the same if we don't bring them to the organized sector.
Okay, so there are many more questions, but since
I
we are
think
lacking time, we may answer. These are the main questions.
Wonderful.
We can move on. Sir.
Wonderful. So it was a pleasure. We could
Before
1 minute. I think it's better that I also share my contact. If anyone has any sort of questions or anything that you wish to share, you could just shoot a mail or give me a call. I'm always available. Let's continue this conversation that we built through this platform. Once again, I thank and appreciate the confidence and also for this opportunity. HOD sir, I'm so sorry, I don't remember the names, but HOD sir, the coordinators, all the faculties, the management who has given me this platform to interact with you all. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Before we wind up, I would say again, it's a brilliant webinar, brilliant presentation by Sir Rishikesh, and now I would like to.
Unmute your audio, ma.
So before we wind up for today, once again, I would like to say that it was an excellent presentation by Sir Rishikesh KB, faculty member from the Department of Commerce, Christ University. Now I would like to call upon Professor Ranganath, who is also the coordinator for BCom program, SJEC, Department of Commerce, to propose the vote of thanks.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah. Good afternoon, one and all. It is my privilege to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Rishikesh KB for accepting our invitation to be a resource person for this particular program, and for sharing his valuable thoughts on today's subject, business resilience in the face of chaos. On behalf of St. Joseph Evening College, the director, the principal, and all the staff members, just express our gratitude to sir once again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Then I would also, on this occasion, I would also thank to our director, Reverend Father Ben Pereira, for his valuable support for organizing this unique program. And I would also express my gratitude to our beloved principal, Dr. Albert Smith, and Vice Principal, Dr. Priya, for their constructive support for organizing this webinar. And very important, indeed, I would also thank to all the participants for their active participation in this unique program. And finally, I express gratitude to the HOD of Commerce Department, Mr. Ravi Richard, and all the staff members, and particularly who put particularly Ursha Madhavan, Lakshmi, Josephine, who put a lot of effort for organizing this national webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you once again, participants, in taking part in today's webinar. We hope to see you again next time. Until then, keep visiting, do all the work, and thank you so much, and have a great day ahead.
Feedback link is shared in the chat box. You can see the link and fill in the form. Thank you. Once you fill in the feedback form, you will be getting your certificates.